Hey guys, really quick before we jump into the video, I have just created a new community Discord which will be Master Duel focused. If you have any suggestions for decks or archetypes for me to try, or you just want to tell me how unoptimal my builds are, I'd love to hear it. Very soon the runic cards will be released in Master Duel, and I will definitely be wanting to experiment with them and talk to you guys about it. There will also be other channels for talking about other things I like, such as speedrunning, Smash, anime. If any of this tickles your fancy, come and join the Giga gang. There will be an invite link below. Hey everyone, it's GigaDB. So recently I posted a Scareclaw Fan Night deck list that should show up on the screen right about now, if you're interested in that. I have since then made some changes to the deck list, took it to Diamond 1 on the ladder, so I wanted to show you guys the updated list and some Diamond replays. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So as a reminder, this deck's main objective is to take advantage of the fact that any one Scareclaw can let you link climb into Bardiche by using any Dark Link 2, since we put 3 bodies onto the board, one of which is Earth though, so we do have to link that off into a Dark Link. Bardiche gets us access to 2 additional bodies in Silent Boots, over here, and Shade Brigandine over here. From there, as long as we have 1 extender, we can make the Scythe lock, which locks your opponent out of the extra deck, by going into Destroy Phoenix Enforcer, which has terrorized previous Master Duel formats. We also have access to Fog Blade, which is a monster negate as well. So this time around, I'm just going to highlight the major changes to the list, rather than do the card by card. First, you may notice we are on 60 cards. The logic behind this is that I would like to draw the bricks less, and the deck should be consistent enough with 1 card starters, even at 60 cards. This is similar to how Dragon Link builds recently. For additional consistency slash the ability to extend, I added in 2 Visas Starfrost. In a pinch, you can summon a hand trap, like Droll and Lockbird or Ash Blossom, and do your combo using Vsauce instead of a Scareclaw. I was originally playing over these 2 Vsauce though, Pure Array Map. You can use Pure Array Map to search out any of the 0 attack Scareclaws. However, you're essentially going to be starting the duel with 2,000 life points between using Pure Array Map and Verte Anaconda. So I didn't quite like that too much, because there are some instances where the game goes to a grind game and then you just lose from having too little life. I'm trying out the extra copies of Vsauce for now, but you could opt to play the Pure Array Map instead. I'm not sure which one is quite better yet. I also added in the 3 copies of Small World. We are already naturally playing hand traps that can serve as bridges. I do think that Small World is a very important inclusion because it helps you access the Adventure Engine, which the Adventure Engine is really, really good in this deck or just in general. However, these can also just serve as extra copies of Scareclaws. Let's say you don't draw a Scareclaw, but you draw a hand trap in Small World, then you can easily access your Scareclaw engine. So if you count the Vsauces and the Small Worlds, we have 19 cards that can get us into our standard play. Pretty consistent, even at 60 cards, almost a third of the deck. I also decided to try out dipping a little further into the Phantom Knight engine since we are playing a high deck count. Drawing the Phantom Knight cards isn't particularly great, but going a little deeper into the engine can help you convert into stronger boards or have some follow-up. It depends on the hand, really. They don't really accomplish anything on their own, but if you have the Scareclaw engine in addition to the Phantom Knight cards, that can be pretty good. So they're not quite bricks, they're like more of a soft bricks. We added in the 2nd copy of Silent Boots as well as the 2nd Fog Blade. If you open Silent Boots, you can end your standard combo on 2 Fog Blades instead of 1. And even if you don't draw any Phantom Knight card on the second turn that you play, or usually would be turn 3, you can use Bardiche to set the 2nd Fog Blade, so you have a little bit of a follow-up play as well. We are also on a higher hand trap slash going 2nd card count. So I added in 2 triple Tactics Talents, 1 Harpy's Feather Duster, a Lightning Storm, Crossout Designator, plus a Crossout Designator package. I changed 1 Veiler into the Infinite Impermanence just for Crossout Designator, as well as Maxi and Abira, because these are pretty big blowout cards against this deck, so definitely want to try to at least insulate a little bit against them if we can. Just to note, I was on a 3rd Veiler and a 2nd Lightning Storm instead of these 2 triple Tactics Talents, but I think these are pretty good at going 1st and 2nd, so I kind of want to try them out a bit. I haven't really seen them much to decide which is better though. So I also added in Scareclaw Straddle. I was originally thinking maybe I shouldn't be on this because I am playing a mixed deck, not just pure Scareclaw. but it is extremely, extremely good. Sometimes, depending on what your opponent does, if they hand trap a Scareclaw, sometimes you can negate it. It can push for OTKs by powering up your tryhard and getting multiple attacks. An important function for this season was if you drew Rykart, you can normal summon Rykart, search Straddle against Flu, and you could essentially out the wind barrier statue that way. If they tried to Ryza spin your Rykart away before you get to the battle phase, you can use Straddle to negate that. Obviously that won't really be as much of a problem going forward. I was also trying out Scareclaw Splash. I didn't really like it in this build because we pretty much never end on tryhard turn 1. I opted to just cut it even though we are on 60 cards. And finally there is the extra deck changes. The main change that I made was cutting the Zeus engine for a couple of cards. I added in a second Shyheart and Access Code Talker, as well as Underworld Goddess. However, I found that I didn't really go into Underworld Goddess, and you probably just could out any unoutable card by going into Tryhard and using something like Straddle to just walk over it. You can definitely consider cutting Goddess for something else. I did find that there were some hands where I drew Ancient Cloak and didn't draw the Adventure Engine to discard it, and that can be pretty hampering on your end board. You might want to play Barricade Board Blocker just for that case, and I guess you could also use it to grab back a field spell or Fateful Adventure in a pinch as well. Might consider making that change myself, or you could just put in any Nightmare instead. I did make Access Code a couple of times. I think I mostly would go into this during a control matchup. The second Tryhard definitely comes up a couple of times where maybe you don't have the correct Scareclaw monster in play and you need to kind of cycle through one Tryhard and get to the second Tryhard in order to properly set up your Scareclaw lineup to try to OTK. So I do think I like having that second Tryhard. And that's really all the changes I made. Alright, so that's it for the deck list changes. Let's jump into some replays. Alrighty, so we're here with the first replay. I already explained, I think, the regular state-of-the-art combo line in the first deck list video. I'm gonna have to go a little bit faster through it this time, but you'll still get to see the standard combo a few times with some alterations, etc. So here we are. We have one Scareclaw name plus one extender in this hand, as well as some hand traps. So we're going to do the standard line that summons Bardiche, as well as does the Scythe DPE lock. So this particular line we have Vsauce, Starfrost as our extender. So remember, we're going to bring back our Lightheart in this case, in order to make sure we have enough bodies, because we have to pop one to summon Vsauce. And in this particular case, we actually make room in the extra monster zone. So what I opt to do here, and why I was thinking maybe playing extra Vsauces is pretty good, is you can actually just go into another Lightheart, because Lightheart is not a once per turn. Activating the field spell is a once per turn, but Lightheart searching effect is not a once per turn. We can just opt to do it again, and essentially just going to serve for follow-up for next turn. And from here we still have one non-dark monster, so we do have to go into our Darkling 2, and our choice is Dark. And we're going into Bardiche, sending Ancient Cloak, setting Shade Brigadine, searching Silent Boots. So we get our two additional bodies on the board. And then we make Artifact Dagda. Here's where we activate Scareclaw Rival. This is a standard combo. Use our Artifact Dagda to set Scythe. Just bring any Scareclaw back, or Vsauce, doesn't matter. Go into Anaconda, make DPE. And then finally, we're just going to search a Fogblade using the Silent Boots Engrave. And yeah, that's the standard turn. So we have the Scythe lock, a monster negate, and Fogblade, and we have two hand traps. So this is something I want to point out. There actually is some arguments to do different things here. I opted to just shotgun the DPE. I do find I kind of like doing that because people are running things like kaijus and whatnot. So in that instance, it's obviously better to shotgun. However, if you're in something like a control matchup, shotgunning the Scythe means you're just losing out on DPE pop, something you could potentially interrupt your opponent with, because DPE pop is pretty good, right? So you kind of have to decide whether or not you want to shotgun it or not. And you have another decision, what do you want to pop exactly? Here I opted to pop Verde Anaconda, just because in case they try to just deal a lot of damage to me, walk over it for whatever reason. However, you can argue to pop DPE in case they are running stuff like kaijus and whatnot. That's kind of up to you. There's definitely an argument for whether or not you want a shotgun and whether or not you want to pop DPE. Or Bardiche is another important thing to consider as well, because Bardiche does clog your extra monster zone. If you don't draw a Famnite card, for example, and you have a Fogblade in deck still, you probably want to keep him to get that Fogblade set on the follow-up turn. So I opt not to pop him here, but if you already have 2 Fogblades, you might want to consider just popping Bardiche. Alright, so our opponent gets Scythe locked. They have Harvey's Flyduster. I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on? Let's see what's going to happen. They reveal that they're playing Valance and Small World something, but then they just scoop. I don't know if they messed up, if there's something they could have done, or they really need their extra deck and couldn't do anything without it. Yeah, that is the first win in the win streak. Alrighty, so we're here at the second replay. For this particular hand, we drew the Adventure Engine, which is obviously always good to draw. We only drew 1 Scareclaw, but we did hard draw the Scythe, and hard drawing the Scythe is obviously really good, so now we don't have to go into Artifact Dagda, so it's essentially our quote-unquote extender. We also hard drew Ancient Cloak and Silent Boots. Hard drawing Ancient Cloak, as mentioned before, is pretty bad, but the Adventure Engine lets us discard the Ancient Cloak, so just keep that in mind. Don't forget to do that. I've definitely forgotten to do that before. So from here, you can kind of see how we can make a bit of a better board with the Phantom Knight cards. Alrighty, so first up, we're going to go into our Adventure Engine, normal summon Right Heart. We can't use the effect. As mentioned, we're discarding the Ancient Cloak. So now we have our negate up. We're going to go do our Scareclaw plays. Use Light Heart effect. Guild spell, then I'm going to search another Right Heart. We haven't used Right Heart's effect yet. Here I'm just going to use Ancient Cloak's effect. The only reason why I'm doing this now to get Shade Brigadier on the field is if they try to stop my Right Heart with like a hand trap or something, I can negate with Wandering Griffin Rider and then still have 3 monsters on board to draw additional card. That's a small optimization, I guess, but I do like drawing cards, so want to get that in there. So we're going to use Right Heart to search a rival and get another draw. And now we're going to start our Bardiche play. Here we find out our opponent is holding a hand trap in Veiler. I decide to let them negate it because I have enough extenders to do the Scythe lock anyway, and I want to keep Griffin Rider to make sure the Scythe lock goes through. So because I drew the extra Phantom Knight cards, it kind of let me extend a little bit further. And I decided to just equip Draco back to protect from battle, because why not? And again, you make a decision. I decided to just pop Verte and Scythe immediately and summon Scythe back. Here, our opponent is playing a lot of going second cards. They have Infinite Impermanence and 2 droplets, well, one of which they discarded. They did shut down my monster effects. They're playing at Ignister, so they definitely need their extra deck here. I won't say I'm an expert at fighting at Ignister, although I do know that you generally want to stop them from getting their field spell, because their field spell is busted. So I decided to save my Fogblade for their Link monster. And then I'm like, I don't really care what you do aside from that as long as you don't kill me. So here they're just going to Link climb into Access Code Talker, but you'll see that, you know, they're not going to be able to kill me. I have a full board. They'll be able to pop a few things, but that's really it. So they did misplay a little bit here because they didn't bother getting rid of my token for some reason. I'm not really sure why. Not that it matters that much. I would have been able to win on the crackback probably anyway. If they got rid of my token, I might have been in trouble a little bit. Alrighty, so we're here with the third replay, and now you kind of see how I got a bit lucky. So I did lose the coin toss this time for once, and I'm going second. However, my opponent bricked, and this isn't much of a duel, but I just wanted to show it, I guess, just to show my 5-win streak. I found out they were playing Dinosaur, which I have played Dino myself. I know the pain of bricking with Dinosaur. It sucks. So they have Maxi, but I have the called by. And yeah, they're just going to concede. After that, they don't even know what I'm playing. But yeah, Adventure Engine, I had a stacked hand as well, so not much they could do there. Alrighty, so we're here with replay number 4. And this particular replay I do enjoy because I am going first, but I am playing against Eldritch, which is a completely different matchup than most matchups. They don't really get affected by the Scythe lock. However, there is still things we can do, especially for going first. Going second can be a struggle, going first. They definitely have game against us going second, but we can still do a few things. We definitely have a few things in our kit that work pretty well against control matchups like this. Let's get into it. And actually, I do want to mention one more thing. Up until this point, you've been seeing 1 card plus 1 extender combos into the Scythe DPE lock. However, I did want to point out that there are 1 card plays, because 1 card does still get you into Bardiche. However, you have a choice to make actually when you have a 1 card combo. You can either make Bardiche and get the Fog Blade and DPE, which is pretty good. You have a monster negate and a quick effect pop, and DPE is pretty game winning if you can't get rid of him. Or you could actually still go for the Scythe lock, but you're going to sacrifice your Phantom Knight plays instead. Basically, once you have your Lightheart plus Scareclaw plus Arrival in hand, you can just go straight into Dagda. Then you can activate Arrival, Dagda's effect, and then just go into DPE from there. And you have the DPE Scythe lock. So, you have a choice to make. I usually just go for the Bardiche play because then you have more of a follow-up turn and you don't know what you're playing against. So if you're playing against blue, for example, then the Scythe doesn't do anything. Alrighty, now getting into this replay. This is pretty standard combo. By this point, you guys all know this. We're going to do our Scareclaw plays, go into Reichart, search Arrival. You know how it is. So we're doing the Bardiche play, we have to use Arrival now. But we drew Scythe, so we don't need an extender to save Arrival for later. And just use Link Spider to go into DPE. So that's what we're doing here. Nothing really major to speak of, but we drew 2 hand traps, and then we can use that on our opponent's turn to interrupt them further. And against any combo or mid-range deck, this would be pretty devastating, but Eldritch definitely has some game against us. So you're going to see my opponent's going. I decided to shotgun the Scythe. I again choose to get rid of Verte. So here's when I kind of realized maybe I should start popping DPE in case they, have a way to get rid of it on field. Then at least they'll have more trouble with it coming back over and over again. I do have the Fog Blade for the Eldritch though, because I want to, keep my advantage up and use Bardiche again. I did draw a Scareclaw, which was definitely very helpful here, as you'll see in a second, as I dash her out in defense position. And here, you'll see that they flip Skill Drain in reaction to me trying to activate Bardiche. But I have a backup play. Because I was able to special summon Astro to the field, I can then just set a monster in defense, and then I can switch side to defense, and then I have 3 monsters in defense. And then we get to use the holy grail of control matchups, which is Planet Reichphobia. If you're a control player playing in Scareclaw and you go into a grind game, you want to get rid of this card, because most floodgates stop you from using monsters, but this definitely gets around that, so I can just pop Skill Drain. Just get rid of the floodgate immediately. However, I didn't really have too many plays after that, and I have the Ash if they do have the Scarlet Sanguine, so I'm not too worried at this point. Here I try to use Bardiche again. They, for some reason, just really want to stop my Bardiche. I was fine with that. Here I want to force out the card that they haven't used yet. And turned out to be a Scarlet Sanguine, so I Ash it. Then I'm like, okay, well I can just kill you from here. Then they flip, there can be only one. However, there can be only one doesn't really stop us very well. The only time it's really effective is if they have Zombie Roll, but because they don't, it doesn't really bother us. We use a bunch of different types anyway. So I did have to think about this for a while, but this is the line I figured out for OTK. I eventually go into Access Code Talker. Just pop it, get rid of it, and then I can use Fog Blade at this point just to get enough damage on board to kill them when my opponent realizes that and scoops. Alright, on to the next replay. I am once again going first. As I said, I did get pretty lucky in these series of replays into Diamond 1. Now, this hand is perfectly good. We have the 2 Scareclaws, so we have a Scareclaw plus an Extender. We did hard draw Fateful Adventure, which isn't that great, but in this deck, Fateful Adventure can at least serve as like another extender, even though we can't get our negate on board. In this particular replay, our opponent actually is playing a lot of hand traps, and they do hand traps us a bunch. So you can see again how this deck is pretty resilient through hand traps with the right hands. I'm gonna jump right into it. We're gonna start with Fateful Adventure. Immediately just grab that Water Enchantress. Get rid of Aramesir. go and get our token, and we're going to get the equipped spell Draco back. They're going to max CS. We have Ash Blossom for that. Thank God. Again, our deck does lose pretty hard to max C. We're definitely very grateful to have that. Next, we do our standard Scareclaw plays again. And here is something I want to point out as well, actually. They opt to Infinite Impermanence right card here. And I think this is why this build of the deck is interesting and pretty good. Normally against like pure adventure Scareclaw, I think this would be a pretty good hit because then you're cutting off the search plus draw. However, here we only really needed it to extend further. Like it wasn't completely needed for our combo. This isn't actually the greatest hit on this board for this particular deck. You would want to more save the Infinite Impermanence for either Bardiche himself or for the Artifact Dagda. I did want to point that out. It is pretty interesting that even though this is mostly Scareclaw, and because it's PK Scareclaw, it has different choke points. So here we can just extend into Bardiche, no problem. Here, because we also have the token on board, we can do the full Scythe lock using Shade Brigandine here. And using Link Spider. That's why we have to play Link Spider. It does come up in certain situations. So we have the standard board of Scythe lock plus the Fog Blade, and our opponent used up 2 hand traps. I opt to once again shotgun it. This time I'm like, you know what, I'm going to try popping the DPE, and just in case they had something to remove it, make it more annoying to remove. They're on Flu, so Scythe Lock does absolutely jack shit. But we have the Drone Lock board, and they have no follow-up. Plus we have the Fog Blade too. And I was definitely very happy to deny birds on my way into Diamond 1. Very happy about that.